everybody, this is Francesco Abbruzzino, and I am back with my live news and talk show. This is Frankie, as I said. Still battling with a sinus issue or something, so bear with me today. We got a lot of news to cover, a lot of national and international news. I've got to also talk on Ferguson again, which I touched a little bit on police abuse yesterday when I was taping my local show, which you could catch every Saturday at 12 o'clock on this website, thefrancescoabbruzzino.com, for my national audience. It covers local issues, but I try to put a national perspective on some of them. Then you can also go to 9:30 a.m. on the radio dial if you are local, or philsgang.com. And that, I wanted to give another shout out to philsgang.com. They're these people that are sponsoring me for my Saturday show. Before the show comes up and throughout the show, I'll put up advertisements. These are all to help the operations with my shows. So if you're in need of any of these products, like I put up fluoride shield and iodine, great for fighting the effects of fluoride and dumbing us down. It prevents that. So check out these products, and you'll see them throughout the show. Whenever you hear noise come on, you can flip to it. If you're not watching and you're just listening, you might hear news when I say I go to commercial. And that's just because I'm playing the background, my ads on paper with the music in conjunction with it. So let's go ahead and get started on some of the national news that impacts us all today. And primarily what we're talking about is Ferguson. It's all over the news, folks. We saw a militarized police force yesterday. They had their MRADs. They had the LRADs, the sonic LRADs. They said they would just be used basically for military use in places like Iraq. Yet we saw it being used out in the streets yesterday. We saw newspaper reporters from the Alex Jones Show, from Al Jazeera, getting tear gas shot at them, being told to shut your cameras off. We don't want you filming us. Being shot at with rubber bullets. What happened to our society? We have apparently some officers that are in over their heads. They're not quite sure how to handle the situation out there. So the governor's finally stepped up after the attorney general and others voiced concern about this militarization. And they said, wait a second, what's going on here? And they brought in the Florida Highway Patrol to take over the situation because they may be a bit more experienced. And let's hope they are. Because now it's spreading throughout the United States, New York, everywhere, where they're starting to see more and more protests over police abuses. And like I've said on many of my shows, folks, it's not all of them. It's maybe that 10%. That 10% that's out there committing abuses is what's bringing this all on. They're making the entire force look bad. Homeland Security with their 1039, 1033 program. Basically handing all this military equipment to these forces. I was surprised to hear the Attorney General, who's very liberal, come out and say, hey, wait a second, what's going on over in Ferguson is a militarization of our police, and it needs to stop. Very surprised at it yesterday. So what do we do? What do we do about this military occupation of Ferguson? Is this just is it a preview of what's to come in America? I mean, let's be honest. What we saw happening out there in those streets was a military occupation, basically. What I saw out there represented what I saw basically when in Iraq, Afghanistan. And do we really want that here? I'm sure stations like Al Jazeera use this as a political tool to put out there to all the great nations out there that just don't like us. They used it as a way to look negatively upon America. Do we want that? Do we want that? The entire world is watching, and they're watching in horror. They're watching in horror as these militarized police are using tear gas and rubber bullets on unarmed protesters. And worse yet is they're using it on the press. This is unprecedented. Why are they doing this? Yes, the rioting, looting in Ferguson needs to be stopped. And I hope the FHP can do that. Not the FHP, the Highway Patrol. If order had not been restored, more stores and businesses would not have been destroyed. You're hearing many reports that officers just stood by as the looting and destruction took place. And again, I got a question. I have to question these residents on why they destroyed businesses in their community, businesses that bring revenue into their community, businesses that provide them with jobs. What were they thinking? And I think it goes beyond the riot. However, there's no excuse whatsoever for the brutal tactics that were being employed there. There isn't. Unless we were the crowds were firing on them or doing other stuff. But just for the protests, there was no reason behind it. At one point, police snipers were even using laser scopes, folks, to target protesters that were obviously unarmed. And again, like I said in the beginning, is this sadly just a preview of what's coming in America in the years ahead? Our economy is falling apart. I got a segment coming up about our economy. Phil's Gang, one of my major sponsors, nails it on the head. He's an expert in it. I'd love to get him on for an interview. As people become more angry, more frustrated, there's going to be a lot more incidences of civil unrest. Just like what we've seen over in Ferguson. And in response, the federal government and our overly militarized police will seek to crush it, quell it. They don't want these uprisings. And they'll do it with overwhelming force, I'm concerned about. How is this possible that that our once very peaceful nation has just fallen apart so dramatically? Did I fall asleep? Did I miss something? Policemen with dogs and AR-15 assault rifles standing staging. Blue lit cloud and tear gas. Crowds of protesters with their hands in the air screaming, "Hands up, don't shoot." What do you think about that? That doesn't look like America. Does it look like the America you know? And was this all really necessary? The rioting and looting had already ended, folks, when they came in there and started using these tactics. I know a lot of people are like, yeah, it was necessary. They're rioting. They're looting. But this had all ended. Was there really a need to fire tear gas on unarmed people? We have to ask ourselves that. Was it an overuse of force? In this day and age, images like this spread like wildfire, and they have. Thanks to sites like mine, my social media sites. I have on a national level about 400,000 fans on a national level with a distribution of about 650 a week. 1,000. So it spreads, people. And I'm small. Someone like Alex Jones. Oh. People all over the country and all over the planet will get a first-hand look at how brutal our militarized police have become. And now you're starting to see it. Major media speaking out. Like I said, I was surprised to see Attorney General come out. This is a very staunch liberal guy. Come out saying, hey, what the heck is going on there? What's with this militarization? More attention, and the more attention that this type of action gets, the more likely that it is that this violence will spread. And it will spread to more cities. And I already noted that. We're seeing it on TV. Thousands were showing out throughout the United States. What's going to happen if this continues to grow? They had a guy that was shot, a man that was shot and killed in L.A. by the LAPD. People were upset about that. That just happened Monday. So is what happened in Ferguson going to happen in L.A.? Wherever civil unrest does erupt, our militarized police will certainly be quick to stamp it out, and it's got to be a concern. It's got to be a concern. And when when the police get all this equipment, it's inevitable that they're going to use it. One result has been an outstanding increase in the number of SWAT team raids in America. There's been a ton of them. I got a few stats here on this site I just pulled up. 50% of the victims of SWAT raids are either black or Latino. 79% of SWAT teams are deployed to private homes. 65% of SWAT deployments use battering rams, boot, or some sort of explosive to enter into said homes. And how often do they have the mistaken home, the mistaken person? 62% of all SWAT raids involve search for drugs. Do we need a SWAT team to go search for a bag of pot? In at least 36% of all SWAT raids, no contraband of any kind was ever found. Yet they thought it was necessary to storm the house with a militarized fashion, with militarized equipment, scaring the hell out of the people in there. More than 100 families have their homes raided by SWAT teams every single day. These are stats that are not impressive, folks. They're stats that are scary. And so the question to you is, what do we do about this? How can we change the system? I know we got the legislation moving through the Congress right now that was introduced that I talked about yesterday. RAD, I think is the acronym. But that's basically to deal with the militarization of the EPA, the USDA, and all those agencies. How can we reverse this alarming militarization of our police? Unfortunately, our system has become so corrupt that there seems like there's very little that we can do at this point in time. And it's concerning. And so I ask you, what are your thoughts on all this, folks? Are you concerned as I am? Or am I blowing it out of proportion? Bringing people in there like Reverend Al Sharpton, the race baiter. I don't think that was a good idea. He's an opportunist person, opportunistic. He saw an opportunity, he took it. You have a lot of leaders in Ferguson and the government in Ferguson, the police in Ferguson, that thinks it's a bad idea, that it's just going to encourage further dissent. Dissent is good. Dissent is good when it's done in a productive manner. And it wasn't productive in the beginning. It was being productive, peaceful, and then the police got all crazy. So what do we do now? I know their mayor out there in Ferguson, as mayor knows, he expressed concern about Sharpton, as many did, about this poor guy, Michael Brown, that was shot. Well, I say poor guy. We don't know what happened. There are some eyewitnesses that say they saw the officer in the car with Michael trying to jump in or do something. So there's a lot of concern among a lot of African-American leaders over there in Ferguson. They're concerned that this is becoming a national spectacle. And sometimes star power is not all that good, is it? Not all that good, folks. Sharpton showed up there. He walked arm in arm with the Brown family members, their attorney. Wow, really? An attorney's already involved? Some clergy members. He then gave the typical incendiary speech at the city's old courthouse. Again, pushing American racism. Saying stuff like St. Louis is in fact bearing witness for America. The Band-Aid that has been ripped off. And all of America is seeing the open wound of racism exist. Folks, there's some racism. There's white racism. There's black. There's against Italians. There's against the Spanish. There's all forms of racism. It exists. But not at the level that they're promoting. If it was at the level they're promoting, how the hell did Obama get in the White House? That's my question to you. What America is seeing instead, though, is that Sharpton exists and is ever ready to take advantage of any incident, like this shooting, to promote his own agenda. But the truth about this tawdry, violent, and deceitful background is getting out. This guy's bad news. And if anything, I think he's gonna do harm to this whole movement that they've started out there in Ferguson. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back. All right, and we're back, folks, and now we're going to talk about the economy a little bit. I tell you what, my sinuses, if you're noticing, they're giving me problems. I thought I was going to choke last night on it, and it's ever since I moved back to Florida, my sinuses for the past 5 years have been killing me. It's crazy. The economy. Enough about me. What's up with the economy? I mentioned Phil with Phil's gang. I sat down one day with him, and he went through all this information that basically described to me about how the stock market, how the economy is being manipulated by the government and by some large commercial entities. And it all made sense. And that's why I said I need to get Phil on the show. He's an interesting character. I came across this. I sent this to him. I don't know if he'll use any information, but it basically covers the 14 reasons why the U.S. economy's bubble is basically going to burst because of this false prosperity. This false prosperity that Obama, many of the liberals, and it's not just them, the blue-blooded Republicans too, they want us all to believe that the economy is flourishing. But did you know that a major event just happened? And it happened in the financial markets. And we haven't seen this event since back in 2008, when many of us, myself included, got hurt bad with the tech dump. I'm tired of getting caught in these things. I got caught in the tech dump, lost a ton. I got caught in the whole housing bubble, lost a ton. Not anymore. I'm not going to be there. They're not going to get me anymore, folks. Now, you're going to hear about this story on alternative media. This guy, alternative media. If you rely on mainstream media for your news, you're not going to hear about this. It's great to listen to major media. I listen to major media. I like to get all perspectives. Liberal, Republican, major media, alternative. But you got to expand your horizons. Just prior to the last stock market crash, a massive amount of money was pulled out of junk bonds. Now it is happening again. And I remember I used to be in the junk bond industry. First investors, major junk bond. Got in a lot of trouble. Got out of there before the trouble because I knew something wasn't right. But this is not the only indication that the U.S. economy could be on the verge of very hard times. You have retail sales. They're very disappointing. Extremely disappointing. Mortgage applications are at a 14-year low. And there's growing geopolitical storms. We see it all throughout the Middle East, the Ukraine, Russia. It's all around the world, and it has many investors spooked. For a long time now, we've been enjoying a period of relative economic stability, though our underlying fundamentals continue to get worse. And so this article, and who wrote this article? Michael Snyder came out with 14 issues, 14 reasons why the U.S. economy is in a false prosperity. Like I mentioned, the junk bond market. He says it just experienced a 6-segment event. In other words, it is an event that only is supposed to happen every 1 to 500 million of happening. Billions of dollars are being pulled out of junk bonds. And people are starting to wonder, is the financial market going to crash? The last time they saw a junk bond rout of this magnitude was back in 2008, like I said, and they're concerned. The retail sales, they're having miss expectations for 3 months now in a row. And they just had their worst reading since January. Even Walmart's out there struggling. That's how bad it's gotten. Same-store sales in Walmart have declined for 5 quarters in a row. What's that tell you? It's telling you that the low end, the middle class, are not buying. Why aren't they buying? Because the economy is not as great. The money is not there. The 4-week moving average on mortgage applications, he says it just hit a 14-year low. Lower than back in 2008. He says that the tech industry is supposed to be, it's booming. But there's mass layoffs in the tech industry. We just saw that with Microsoft. According to the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank, don't get me going on that, 40% of all households in the United States are currently showing signs of financial stress. And if they're saying it's 40%, it's probably more like 60%. U.S. home ownership are falling. 76% of Americans do not have money saved the last 6 months. I don't even think have enough money to last a month. It's sad. There's rumblings of a stock market correction everywhere you look. You keep hearing about it. You've seen a few down days last week. When will it come? The civil war in Iraq. Obama's sending troops in. He says they're there for humanitarian reasons, but hey, give me a break. They're the 7th largest producing nation of oil in the entire nation. And a few of those pickets are now being controlled by ISIS. How about Ukraine? Ukraine supplies a ton of oil everywhere. But now, because of the whole Ukraine-Crimea conflict, which was started by the United States, but not told nobody knows that if they're watching major media. And they're afraid this will slow down global trade, especially over in Europe. They're scared. You got this Hamas-Israel outbreak. I was watching, for some odd reason, I have no idea. I was watching the spokesperson, what is her? Martha Hart. She was out there basically giving a press conference every night. She doesn't do it on Friday in August. And she was discussing how now they're concerned about ISIS in Lebanon. Well, she didn't say that. She said extremist groups in Lebanon. And the press corps pressed her. And she said, well, you know, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, all those guys. It spread to Lebanon. And they said, okay, well, what's the difference there? How come in Syria you're over there and you can fight this issue, but you can't in Iraq and Lebanon? She said different situations. And I loved how she came out and said, you know what? Over in Syria, you have 3 primarily terrorist rebel groups. You have Al-Nusra and ISIS, which are extremists. We don't deal with them. And then you have the more moderate rebel group that we deal with. Give me a break, Martha. Give me a break. How about Ebola? If Ebola continues, you're pretty much going to see a shutdown in the entire economy. So think about it, folks. You know, Portugal has crashed into a deep deflation. Italy's inflation rate has fallen to 0. Eurozone's in its first recession. I don't even want to get started on our inflation rate. The United States government takes numbers that will work to their advantage. They'll put up a bunch of variables, and you can take, let's say there's 20 variables. You can use, let's say, 5 of those to produce a inflationary number. So they'll take the 5 that work to their advantage and say, oh, there's no inflation. But I'm telling you, go into the grocery store. Go into the grocery store. Go to the clothes store. Your kids start school. We got to go shopping for more clothes this weekend. Inflation is out there. It's not going anywhere. There's no way this bubble of false prosperity is going to last forever. It was never real to begin with. A lot of it's all fake, manipulation. It's a pyramid scheme. A pyramid scheme. And I'm thinking, with talking to Phil, reading articles like this one, that our situation may be more dire than back in 2008. More dire. But sadly, most people don't understand these things. Most people assume that what our leaders are telling them is accurate, that the information being disseminated out to them is accurate. And they don't delve into it. They don't research it. They stick with what major media and the government's telling them. So when will the next crisis arrive? Will we be blindsided by it? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. That's the question we have to ask ourselves. We'll be right back after this next commercial message. And I'm back. You know, one thing I was just thinking, some of you know, I do a daily local show on Saturdays, and they put out my promo for the beginning and the end. And I guess I say folks too much, and I'm trying to stop saying folks, which I'm not doing a good job at. So at the end of the show, which you can catch again if you're national, just go to my website tomorrow at 12. You can hear it. And they put on there, look, that's all, folks, with Porky the Pig. So that, I guess, it was pretty funny. It's pretty comical, and that's their way of telling me, Frank, you're using folks a bit too much. We're going to talk about Facebook now. And this is an article on how they may be able to manipulate the November election. If you remember, I don't know, a couple months ago, I did a little story on Facebook and how they manipulated your thought patterns. They could make you upset, depressed, down and out, and they try to control your reactions, your responses. And they had some people that left there, and they said, hey, that happens all the time. So the bigger concern is out there is, will they do this to try to obtain their agenda, the agenda of their leaders? Will they do stuff to block some Republican activism out there? It's become a political network, and it's a two-faced one with facing it left. What happens, and let's just do an example. You're out there, you're on, here's a good one. And it shows you how they can control stuff. Back out there about 3 months ago, a lot of people were seeing my different pages. It was getting a lot of visibility, and you could go in there and see your counts on how many people are being impacted. I still have a large account because pages like my scoop pages, they get a lot of action on there. They get a lot of traction. People know to like them. It's not even that they know to like it. They just go out there and actively are liking, sharing, reading, involved in it. So they're getting my feed constantly into their pages, which works good for me. That means I'm doing the right things. Now, let's say you got a page like some of these other ones. These alternative ones are a little bit harder. And you don't have that same buy-in. People aren't out there liking. They don't realize they have to like. They don't realize they have to share or comment to get the page to continue to show up in their feed. So they can control it with no problem. And you see that easily. So what's to stop them from controlling the messages, the advertising that's coming up? What's to stop them from controlling the pages that feed into your Facebook? I'm to the right. What's to stop them from putting up a left message? What's to stop them from putting Huffington Post, a left-leaning paper, and showing theirs more often? I can tell you, and I think this is actually happening, folks. There I go with folks. I am right-leaning. I subscribe. I don't subscribe, but I like Huffington Post. I could tell you that I'll look at the article when it comes in. I rarely click through to it. I never comment. You rarely see me comment on other pages. And I don't like Huffington Post because I don't want to promote it. But for some reason, Huffington Post is always in my feed. It's the strangest thing. With their left-leaning message, their left-leaning communication. Why is that? If you look at most of the stuff I like, if you look at most of the stuff I put out, if you look at my pages, I'm right-leaning. I'm not a Republican. I'm not on the side of the blue bloods. I'm right-leaning with a lot of my thoughts, but I tell you what, the Republicans don't get me going there. That's a whole other show. But I favor them. I'd rather see a Republican in office than a damn liberal. I want to see the Republicans take the Senate because a lot of their values, a lot of their beliefs are in line with me. So why is it that Huffington's always on there? Yet other pages that I like that are right-leaning, that are alternative news-leading, aren't on there. Alex Jones, great example. I think they're an excellent... He might be a quack. A lot of people think he's a quack. I think he's extreme on some stuff, not all stuff. Just like if Alex Jones is watching this, he probably agrees with some, but not all my stuff. But I tell you what, I love reading his articles. I go to his page all the time. I like his feeds. I like every one of his pages. Same with Mark Dice, Luke Rydanowski or something like that. The American Time American, something like that. Rudders, Breitbart, all that stuff. Yet, for some reason, I never see Alex Jones feeds on my threads. So why is that? How come I never see them? I'm liking them. I'm doing everything we're supposed to, but I never see them. I have to go to the page. Same goes for the American. Same goes for IntelliHub. Many of these pages I never see, but I always see Huffington Post, a left-leaning blog. So I do think Mark Zuckerberg is out there trying to control the message. This is a guy that is very left-leaning. He is pushing for amnesty. How do I know he's not out there trying to manipulate the election? Blocking the right-leaning, the alternatives, the libertarian sites from getting to me. Fortunately, I'm smart enough and to know that this is happening, and I go out on my own to research it. They talk about this guy, Mosley, in this article. He writes that he had started an event on Facebook page, and it was designed to raise money for this Republican, Kevin Wade, who's running for the Senate in Delaware, against Chris Coons, a Democrat. Because Coons was vulnerable, they saw an opening, they were going to go for it. This is what happened. Next, Facebook deleted the event and created, the author created Kevin Wade, Don't Hope for Change, for $25 from $3,000 for U.S. Senate, and they started pushing the left agenda on there. So why is Facebook doing this? What we needed, when I was reading this whole article, what I started thinking is we need an alternative to Facebook. We need a Facebook, not really an alternative, and I shouldn't say that. What I want, I love Facebook. I love how it gives me articles and that. I don't like how they stop the flow, how they try to control you, how they're manipulating out there. So I'd like something with that whole concept that lets everything flow freely. That lets me see the right, the left, whatever I like, and lets it flow through. And they don't try to control it. They don't try to push their agenda on me. You know, I have pages where I push my agenda, but they're my pages, and people know that. They know going into it, this is basically what we're going to see on it. Most of them know I will share stuff I don't agree with all the time on many of my pages. So what's going on with Facebook? And is it something we should all, as citizens, be concerned about? About this political internet manipulation. It's been occurring for a long time. So be concerned about it. And it's not just them two. It's Google, many more folks. So I'm just picking on Facebook now because that article came out. Snowden. He's revealed some secret NSA mastermind program. This is our whistleblower, Edward Snowden, the traitor to the country. I don't think he is. He's been deemed that because he's let out a lot of secrets. They say they're national security. It's not national security. It's the fact that he let out the fact that the government's spying on us and that the government's doing a lot of things they shouldn't be doing. This monster mind. It's a program that's automated prediction in response to possible cyber attacks against the United States. What they do is they go in and analyze patterns of data that flow into and out of the country. And if you have the wrong type of data or the wrong pattern, you're targeted. It's required the NSA to intercept private communications of Americans, and it's raising constitutional concerns. It's raising privacy concerns. It's violating our Fourth Amendment. It's seizing private communications without a warrant, without any wrongdoing, without any suspicion of wrongdoing. It's for everyone. It's for all the time. And don't tell me I don't care because I'm not doing anything wrong. Why should I care? That's not the point, folks. And I'm so tired of hearing that. And this even goes beyond domestic. International diplomacy might be a nightmare because if it's happening here, it's my communications going to Italy, to my sister, or India. You know, I have my company operates out of India and Italy and India. If I'm communicating them about business, that's being monitored. Do you think the Indian government is concerned about residents in their country being monitored? Same with Italy. The proactive nature of Monster Mind creates a sort of a predictive judgmental about cyber attack that hasn't even occurred. But again, they're saying for your safety, we're doing this. We're out there looking out for your best interest. And we all should be concerned about it. He has also revealed, got this paper falling. He's also revealed that the U.S. government sends out raw data of private American citizens straight to the Israeli intelligence. Why is that happening? Why is my private information being sent to another government? The specter of sending digital U.S. phone calls and emails straight to a foreign government is troubling, to say the least. It's troubling, to say the least, folks. Isn't listening to American phone calls bad enough? Why bother doing that when you can have a foreign intelligence agency come in and do it on your behalf? Come on in, Israel. Bring the Mossad in. Look at all my stuff. Check out my underwear drawer. And not surprisingly, mainstream media is barely covering this. I don't think they're covering it at all. And why? So again, if you're new to the show and you're always listening to mainstream media, you may want to stop and start paying more attention to shows like this one. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and I'll be back in just a moment. What we're going to discuss now is Obama and ISIS and a couple other things. There was an op-ed that came out about why exactly is Obama bombing ISIS that I thought was real interesting. So we're going to discuss that and see where it takes us. So let's first start by Obama helping ISIS in Syria and how now he's fighting them in Iraq and the craziness of it. You know, as I said, we got troops on the ground there. They're called there for humanitarian reasons. We're bombing. He said that we were going in to bomb to stop them from pursuing one of the cities in Kyrgyzstan, in the Kurd-held area, which is primarily because we have CIA operatives there and some other stuff. He wanted to protect them. And he was going to bomb around the hill to protect those 40,000 people, which turned out to be a couple thousand, if that. Okay, now he came out and he said, look, they're saved. We did a great job. Pat myself on the back. I'm a hero. Kurds are pulling them back. But we're going to continue bombing now. Oh, okay. So he's done this and he's gone into basically a war without calling it a war. Or even getting permission from the Congress, as the Constitution requires. The crucial role played by the U.S. government and its allies in creating and empowering the threat is once again being overlooked by the King, Obama. Sending weapons and providing training to the same jihadists in Syria who later crossed into Iraq. They deny it, like I said, with Martha Hart's comments yesterday. But they did this to tactically endorse the bankrolling of their Islamic terror groups that were supposed allies in Syria. Our foreign policy has been critical in the emergence of monstrous, barbaric, self-styled Islamic State caliphate, which is formerly known as ISIS, which is now IS. I don't know. Obama keeps calling them ISIL. I'm not sure why. But under the guise of fighting the threat, it helped to create the administration is, again, put American lives at risk and violating the Constitution, despite his repeated repeats not to put boots on the ground. U.S. war weapons, large quantities, folks, have been seized by the Islamic State as they advance through Iraq. There are now we're now providing arms to Kurdistan, the Kurdish militia. Even separately, even more U.S. military and financial support is going over Iran because Iran's now got people in there fighting in Iraq. Like so many supposed threats to the U.S. national security in recent decades. However, the barbarity is engulfing the region there, and its roots are here in D.C. U.S. officials have admitted that many of the weapons being used by ISIS to butcher Christians, Shias, and other Iraqis are actually paid for by the U.S. taxpayers as they seize them rampaging around Iraq. Other American weapons now in the hands of those terrorists are being acquired from Syria, where Obama administration went in and we tried to foment and support this jihadist action against Assad. It was a half-baked plan to overthrow anti-ISIS Assad. It didn't work, though, did it? According to Jordanian officials, the U.S. government actually trained these jihadists in Jordan a few dozen times. Now the same out-of-control politicians and officials responsible for this mess are demanding even more U.S. interventionism to deal with this problem. Should we do it? It doesn't matter what we say, if what we think about should we do it. He's going to do it. Then you got Hillary up there playing the politician, saying that Obama's foreign policy for the rise of ISIS is troubling and going into concerns with that. But then, to save herself and get back on the good side of Obama, she says, they took it out of context. They took it all out of context. And they're hardly the only Islamic terrorist group that's benefited, directly or indirectly, from our foreign policy. It's common knowledge out there that the U.S. government's armed, funded, trained, and radicalized Islamists in Afghanistan that eventually became Taliban or Al-Qaeda. So we shouldn't be surprised. Before that, the U.S. foreign policy established to bring mass murderers such as Cuba's Castro and China's Mao to power. Today, American taxpayers are being fleeced for billions of dollars handed to regimes that are known to support terrorism. And in some cases, even provide aid directly to the terrorists in violation of U.S. policy. So what says you about this? Look, the last thing the world needs right now is for the Obama admin to launch more unconstitutional wars whenever and wherever he and his backers feel like they should or could. Whether that be in Iraq, Syria, or any other place. If Congress feels this intervention is necessary, after having some debate, after getting input from the American public, it can declare the war or issue a letter of reprisal to permit the targeting of non-state actors, such as ISIS. But that's not happening. Americans as individuals and communities can and should do what they can to support the victims of the U.S. foreign policy around the world. Now, there's this op-ed out there, and a very interesting op-ed, I might add. And let me see, I forget the individual's name. Pepe Escobar. He's a roving correspondent in Asia and Hong Kong. And I just love what he had to say. And it was primarily about the multi-trillion-dollar global war that never seems to end. Never seems to end. He calls it the GWOT. And since its conceptualization 13 years ago after 9/11, he says it's a gift that keeps on giving. And no gifts are given bigger than a transformer Al-Qaeda on steroids. Bigger, brasher, wealthier than any Osama bin Laden or al-Zawahiri had ever dreamt of. President Obama, before deploying to his golf holiday in Martha Vineyard, casually dropped the bombing of the Caliph goons in Iraq. It'll take months. One may interpret it as just another layer of Obama administration's self-avowed, don't do stupid stuff, foreign policy doctrine. Not so subtle, mocked by prospective presidential candidates like Hillary Clinton. Shock and awe in 2003 destroyed the whole Baghdad's infrastructure in only a few hours. But he needs months. One could possibly expect Obama to declare war. Declare the U.S. would now bomb our allies, the House of Assad, who have supported, financed, and weaponized this in Syria and Iraq. We don't see that. Go after Saudi Arabia. They're the ones supplying these guys with the money and the weapons. But this guy made some excellent points going on throughout here. And I encourage you to read it. He put it out through RT. The title is Why Obama's Bombing the Caliph. So read more on it. Very interesting article. Next, I wanted to jump over to immigration. Again, I always preface this. My father my aunts, uncles, grandma. They all immigrated here from Italy. So I'm not anti-immigration. I am anti-illegal immigration. But now we're seeing, I covered yesterday how all these kids are coming here. The financial burden that's going to be placed on schools throughout the United States. It's no longer a border issue with Texas, New Mexico, California, Arizona. It's evolved. It's blown up. It's now an American issue since they're exporting them all over the United States. Importing, exporting. I think they're exporting them. Taking them from Texas, exporting them out to us. But now they're saying that these children will be classified or should be classified as homeless to avoid school enrollment documentation requirements. So now they're homeless. They're not illegals. They're homeless students. And what they're coming out, they're saying that the Virginia Department of Education issued a memo to all 132 divisions stating, hey, we need to give these kids equal access to education. Equal access? What's going on? Am I on some fantasy island? Am I in a dream? Why are illegals being given equal access to my kid? My kid that was born here. That's a resident here. That my tax dollars are going out and helping this whole economy evolve. Now you want me to take this illegal, their parents haven't contributed to my economy, and treat them equally. Look, I empathize with them. I feel sorry for these kids. The major media loves putting their pictures up and getting me feeling really bad and about it, really concerned about it. But when it comes down to it, folks, just like I said in my interview yesterday, my local show, it was interviewing a guy running for state rep candidate, Julio Gonzalez. And I asked him, where do you stand on the legislation that Scott signed? I don't know. It was about a month ago. And basically, it gives immigrant kids access to college at the same rates as my daughter, as a state citizen, a state resident of Florida. And that has me concerned. Because what happens, folks, when you're bidding for college, let's say there's an illegal and my daughter. They're both come to the table with the same stuff. My fear is that they're going to favor this illegal. This illegal wouldn't even be considered if they didn't have to pay the state rates. They may not be considered because it would be too expensive. They have to pay the out-of-state rate. But now they're in-state, so they may take that. If they're only allowing 100 kids in, and it's between him and my daughter is the number 100, and they allow this illegal in, my daughter gets bounced. An American citizen. American citizen whose dad and mother pay taxes will get bounced for this illegal. This illegal who doesn't and has not paid any taxes, has not contributed to our society. Where in God's name is the fairness with that? Seriously, folks. And I asked, and you'll see his response if you watch Saturday's shows, but he has the same concerns that I do. One other thing I wanted to talk about, and I should have talked about this earlier, and that's just about the overall wages of the economy and how they're down. Wages are basically down 23% since 2008. And I put this in at the wrong time. Like I said, I should have put it back in when I was talking about the whole economy issue. Not only are the hours down, there's a ton of jobs, but what's happened is many people have backed it down to 30 hours a week. And why? To avoid Obamacare regulations. So you're not getting the hours. That probably plays into this whole job pay. They're saying that on average 23% less today than it did before the 2008 recession. So job pay is down. And this is according to a new report released by the United States Conference of Mayors. They're saying that they found $93 billion in lost wages. Jobs lost during the recession paid an average of $61,000, $61,637. After the recession in 2014, jobs in the same sector are only paying $47,171. Why such a steep decline? So you got these jobs paying less, You're getting less hours, and you got inflation skyrocketing. Whoops. That's right. The government says there is no inflation. These numbers are startling. They should be concerning. And these numbers only add to the issue that I discussed earlier in the show. 73% of the metro area households earn salaries less than $35,000 a year. But Barack's off on in Martha's Vineyard as the Middle East burns, as the Ukraine is erupting, as our economy falters. He's off playing some golf. And he's just not commenting. I did an analysis. Sorry, sciences. I think I did it on my local show. And I went back in and I basically said, okay, I was concerned about a lot of people here in my town. The demographics show that we're not a wealthy city. Many people do not make the income needed to sustain a healthy lifestyle. So I started looking. I took what monthly incomes to, electric, phone bills, and everything, all those variables. And I tried to determine how much money you need to bring in, because I couldn't figure it out. I bring in okay money, but for some reason I can't save money. And I'm like, if I'm at this level and I can't do it, how is somebody at 20,000 going to do it? And they can't. It's virtually impossible. 25,000, nope. 30, nope. Basically, I went all the way up to about 50,000. 50,000, and then you take off taxes and stuff, is where I think a person almost needs to live. Who's going to make 50,000 at McDonald's? Everybody says raise the minimum wage, raise the minimum wage. That's going to cause job cuts. That's going to cause more inflation. And to be honest with you, most of those guys are up around that mark. I mean, minimum wage might be $7.15, but my daughter was brought in at an hour or more at Publix. So they're being paid a lot more than what minimum wage is out there. I think at the majority of the establishments, maybe the local small mom and pops pay more than minimum wage. Maybe. But think about it, folks. I'm college educated. I have a background and stuff that gets me pretty good pay. I can go out and get a pretty good job. Even if I lost my company, if I started making money on this gig, which I make nothing, then I would have something to fall on. I could go out and get a management job or something. And I'd probably bring at least 50,000 in. So my lifestyle, not my lifestyle, but I wouldn't be deemed homeless. I wouldn't be deemed financially strapped. I wouldn't be on welfare. I wouldn't be on all these entitlement programs that are out there. I just don't see how people can live on 35,000. These are trying times. Trying times, folks. And we should all be concerned. We should empathize with a lot of these people that are going through these times. They're struggling through these times. It's very hard indeed. All right, well, that's been my show. You can catch my local show, like I said, tomorrow at 12 o'clock on this the Francesco Abbruzzino Show.com, like on that banner. If you're watching this show, you're on that page already. Just go to the tab says Phil's Gang. It's a Saturday show covering some of the local issues. I will be back on Monday. We're live. We're live and unedited every Monday through Friday from 9 to 10. This is, like I said, a one-man show. I do the hosting. I do the research. I do the technical aspects. And at some point, I got to make a dime, which is why I started putting up this revenue-sharing advertising that you've just saw start up in the last couple of days. So hopefully I'll generate something from that. Who knows? But this has been Francesco Abbruzzino, or Frankie. And I will see you guys on Monday. For now, have a great weekend.